Okay, I'll narrate again. So we are doing the Terraform thing. Okay, so in Terraform, you will have this file called as main.tf. A tf here extension means dot Terraform file. And here you have certain structure which we'll talk about, but let's just see what it is doing right now. Okay, so if I show you my instances here, you will see my static site staging, fine, but there's one more called as tf my EC2 instance. This is the instance which I have not created manually. I have created it. I have not rather even created it. Terraform created it. I gave an instruction to this tool, this client called as Terraform, and Terraform went ahead and spinned up this instance for me. Now I will just show you, I will first go and destroy this, and then I will show you the example of it, and then I'll show you how to recreate this. Okay, so I will go here, and here I will write Terraform destroy. And don't worry, I'm just starting everything from Terraform. I haven't even talked about how to install it. I will talk about all that in a while. I'm just showing you what it is and how it works. So now I've written Terraform destroy. Terraform destroy, what it would do, it will check what's there on the server already. सर्वर पे अभी क्या बना हुआ है, मुझे क्या destroy करना है, उसको पहले वो पता होना चाहिए, right? That information is stored in the TF state. तो TF state में लिखा होता है, ये automatically file है, मैंने नहीं बनाई, Terraform बनाता है इसको. Terraform automatically creates this. I didn't create it. Terraform will go to this file and see what's already there. And it will go back and see, validate, yes, something is there which is running, and I have gotten an instruction to delete this. So what it will do, it will show you what it will delete. It will not delete it immediately. It will show you that if you run this command, which is Terraform destroy, I will go ahead and start destroying these things. I will destroy the AWS instance. I will destroy everything within it, and then I will destroy the security group. And that's actually the two resources which I have here. Okay, so basically it's saying I will go and destroy this. Do you really want to destroy resources? I would say yes, I want to destroy. I'm a destroyer. So I'll say enter a value, yes. And it will start calculating, start destroying. It has saying I'm destroying this, still destroying until unless it gets information from AWS that is being destroyed. You see shutting down. It was running before, now it's saying shutting down, and in a while it will just shut down, and the Terraform will actually wait. Okay, now after I've shown you how to destroy, let me tell you what it is, right? This is a concept called as infrastructure as code. Okay, what is infrastructure as code is what I just discussed, was actually asking in the beginning, called as IAC. Come on. IAC, right? It is called as infrastructure as code. What do we mean by infrastructure as code? The concept is infrastructure. What is infrastructure? Infrastructure is a set of virtual machines, not virtual machines, the machines, physical machines, networks, subgroups, firewall rules, applications, collection of machines, and all the things around it, right? Ingress rules and this and that, hell lot of things. Infrastructure means hell lot of thing, everything around machines and network and all those things, right? If one person goes and create that infrastructure today, and that person goes on leave, or he quits the company, or simply gets a better job and doesn't want to work anymore on a notice period, right? And you want to recreate that infrastructure, something goes wrong and infrastructure has to be recreated. How will you know what that specific person has done? Maybe he may have gone ahead and created a documentation, but documentation has to be updated every time. And whatever he did not really update the documentation. So how would you know कितने machines थे, उनमें क्या configuration थी, क्या firewall rules था, what was the ingress setting, what was the egress setting? How would you know, right? So that's the reason this new concept called as infrastructure as code has came in. And here they say maintain the infrastructure details as code. As code here means something which can be read by a computer, a configuration file. Can be written in YAML, can be written in whatever format you can write. So if you know the tool called as Ansible, Ansible stores this configuration into YAML files. And there's another tool called as Terraform. These are the two tools which are quite famous in this space. There are others also. Chef is also infrastructure as code tool, which can automate your infrastructure. Uh, but Terraform is something which is widely used when it comes to things like cloud, right? So when you have to, you have hybrid cloud net infrastructure where you have Google Cloud, you have something on the Amazon Cloud, some service running on somewhere else. So Terraform can handle all the clouds at ease very easily, and it is made for cloud related infrastructure setup. It can also do a lot of things other than that, but it's something there's no comparison. I'm not comparing Ansible is bad, Terraform is good. They have their own different use cases. A lot of companies use both together for different things. Okay, so today, since we are doing AWS, we're learning the basic of IAC. We are starting with the Terraform thing. Okay, so Terraform here has a capability to create instances on AWS, and it can maintain the configuration as code, or rather I would say as a configuration file, because code actually mean a different thing. Code is a logical structure, instructions which gives an output. Configuration is how you define what you want, a definition of the state of your infrastructure, right? So you will say configuration file. The configuration file is written in a language, and a special configuration language called as SCL, or called as HashiCorp configuration language. This is a configuration file which is developed, configuration syntax developed by HashiCorp. HashiCorp is the parent of Terraform. Terraform comes under HashiCorp. They have a lot of other offerings called as Vault, and I forgot one more. But Terraform is its tool, and to configure Terraform, you use this file called as HashiCorp configuration language within it. So if I go and open it now, what you are seeing, यहाँ जो दिख रहा है आपको, ये this is written in a HashiCorp configuration language. Right now, this may appear a bit alien to you. ये क्या लिखा है? But even though it's alien, you will still figure out what's written. And that's the beauty of IAC. In IAC, you can just read through things and you would know what's happening. Even though you have no clue about Terraform, but you still can see यार कहीं पे region set किया है, somewhere a VPC is declared, somewhere AMI is declared. Okay, scroll down, there is something for ingress, there is something for egress. It makes some sense. Okay, something on subnet ID, some tags are written, some user data is written. Okay, and some output is being coming out, and maybe a public IP. So if you just read through it, even if you have no idea what it is, you still would know what it is. You still would know what this file may have been doing, right? Okay, now before I run this again, let me show you another example, a very simple example of this. But before even that, let me show you the installation, because that's the first thing. To install infrastructure as code Terraform tool on your machine, you need to go to HashiCorp install Terraform. You go to install Terraform, and then you will have all the instructions here for different systems. Well, I am using Mac, so I have just, for Mac it's very easy. Basically, I just went ahead and used Homebrew and then installed it. If you are on Mac, then you just simply go and do this. If you are on Windows, then they are saying use Chocolatey on Windows, but I think these are not the right page. I will send the right page. You will get just a simple binary. You just download it, exe file, double click, and it will have an installation wizard, and then you can install it. Okay, so that's that on it. You can just install it. I'm not going through how you install Terraform. You can just Google it and you'll find the way of installing it. It's not that difficult. Fine. Next thing is, once you install it, how will you validate whether it's installed? So you simply say Terraform version. This will give you something like this. And if you see this, that means it's installed. Okay, fine. It's installed. Next thing you would do is you will go to a blank. You go to a blank, maybe a folder. I will say Z my IAC and then I go inside. Okay, I go maybe here, and here I create a file main.tf. Okay, so I have a new file inside main.tf, and then now see I have to use Visual Studio so that I could handle it well. I think for now there is no doubt left on why I am using Visual Studio. Visual Studio has nothing to do with any of the tool which I'm using. It is just for editing the files. Okay, and if you still have doubt, let me know. Now I can talk about it further. But I am on Visual Code now, and I go inside and open this folder. So I have a new folder here with just one file, main.tf. Okay, and this is where actually I will go ahead and write my configuration. So I will start with Terraform. This is the first thing which you go and write. It will right now you will see something coming automatically. It's because I'm using GitHub Autopilot. For you it won't happen like this, so you will have to type lot of things. For the sake of simplicity, I don't want to type. I have already made this before. Did I? Yes, I have it. So I will just copy paste. I will go and copy the first block. I will say Terraform required providers Docker source version. That's the first statement I would write here. Okay. Now required providers in Terraform means because Terraform requires something called as providers to connect to the service against which it is going to deploy the infrastructure. For Docker, I'm using this thing. This is again something called as plugin system in Terraform. So this is a plugin in Terraform website under providers. You can go and check in Terraform required providers. You would get to see these things. If I compare this with the where it go? Oh, did I close it? The previous window, it's not there. Oh, I think I by mistake closed it. Let me open this. Open again, maybe in a new window. In the new window, I will open my ISC here. So if you notice, is it the one? Yeah, okay. So if you notice, I have the provider as AWS. Okay, but if I go here, I have the required providers as Docker. Okay, now what I do next, I will go and copy paste few more things. So I have to copy. There's a specialized block here. The block here is called as resource, something like this. Okay, and this means here I want to have a image as a resource. I want this to be pulled saying Docker image, and what I'm giving it a name called as Nginx. So this is the type, and this is the value of that block. So I'm giving this block a name called as Nginx. Okay, Nginx. Next resource I will go and put here something like this. Here I'm saying this is a type of this is a resource of type Docker container, and then I'm also giving it a name as Nginx. Okay, and here I'm saying the image which I want is Docker image, which is this dot Nginx dot image ID. So this is how the Terraform knows that this is the container it wants to create from this image, which is being pulled. So now this specific file which I have has the capability to pull and deploy the container on my local dashboard, on my local Docker. Okay, so I'm showing you a small example. You see why I'm doing this? Again, in a nutshell, before I show this or how this is working on EC2, I want to show you so that you can also try it on a local machine, how to deploy a specific container using Terraform on your local Docker installation. Okay, so far so good.
Okay, I also need to add one more line called as provider to mention that provider here is Docker. That's a syntax I want to provide if I were to deploy anything on any special on any infrastructure. Right now, the infrastructure which I want to deploy this into is actually Docker, my local Docker installation. That's what you would use to deploy something Docker desktop installation. Don't worry too much about what this is. This is, as I told you, is provider. Provider here means provider is something which is developed by Terraform themselves and other community member who contribute to that project, and that is what you would need to deploy resources on any platform. In our case, in this special case, मेरा platform है Docker. मुझे Docker पे installation करना है, तो मुझे provider में I had to mention कि मुझे कहाँ पे कौन सा provider ये चीज मेरे लिए परफॉर्म एक्टिविटी ऑपरेशन को परफॉर्म करेगा, डॉकर प्रोवाइडर परफॉर्म करेगा. एंड देन आई हैव टू प्रोवाइड the blocks of resources which I want to be deployed on that platform. In this special case, I want an image nginx, and then I want a container made out of that image which I pulled earlier. Okay, now if I go and do this and I run Terraform apply, there will be an error. It will say inconsistent dependency log file, and it will ask you to run Terraform init. So Terraform init is always something which you run first, and when you run this, you will see something called as providers. तो वो जो provider है जो आपने यहाँ mention किया है, उसका installation वो कर देगा वहां पर आपके उस specific folder में. It will install that provider. Okay, so I will go ahead and say what it is asking me to do. Terraform init. Initializing provider plugins. You see, these are the plugins. Terraform is successfully initialized, and it will create a folder called as .terraform, and inside this it will do something like this: Terraform provider -docker. And if I can show you the, where is, again I closed it. Why I'm doing this again? No, I did not. So if I go here and see the provider here is Terraform provider AWS. This is being downloaded from the Terraform registry, and this is what is actually doing the thing behind the scene. Behind the scene, this is what is reading this main.tf and doing things with AWS. In my case, I'm using the Docker installation, so it is saying that I have downloaded the Terraform provider Docker to do things. Now I go ahead and say Terraform plan. When I say Terraform plan, it doesn't really create anything on its own. It will only tell me अगर तुमने Terraform apply किया, if you did that, then this is what I will go and create. This is what Terraform is telling me. Terraform telling me if you do this, then I will go ahead and create a container, and I will download the image. But there are two resources. It's saying plan 2 to add, 0 to change, 0 to destroy. I said yes, I want to do that. So I'll say Terraform apply. It will ask me, really, you want to do this? I said yes, I want to. And the moment I do this, it said it has created, and you can see the effect directly here. If I say Docker PS now, it has started running the container just 7 minutes ago, and you can see that from dashboard also that it has created this. You see, it has created the nginx, and if I go and see, it will also tell me that it's running. Okay, and if I want to go ahead and destroy this, I will simply go ahead and say Terraform destroy, and it will say, really want to destroy it? I said yes, it will destroy. I will say Docker PS, everything closed. If I go and see the dashboard, everything's closed, no server. Okay, before I jump to the EC2, questions? Everyone's asleep?
सर ये आप हेलो,
हाँ बोलो बोलो.
सर ये आप विजुअल स्टूडियो कोड पर चला रहे हैं, तो हम लोग विजुअल स्टूडियो कोड यूज नहीं कर रहे, तो हम कहाँ पर चलाएंगे ये सब कमांड्स? मतलब
Okay, so if you don't want to use Visual Studio Code, don't use Visual Studio Code. You can run your command from here.
Okay.
Run from here.
Okay, command prompt.
Yes, I say Terraform apply. Yes,
Okay.
that's it.
Okay.
Okay, questions?
सर इसमें हम जैसे टेराफॉर्म से हम कंटेनर बना रहे हैं डॉकर का, और डॉकर कंटेनर हमारे लोकल लोकल पे बना रहे हैं हम, है ना?
Yes, yes.
तो इसमें EC2 इंस्टेंस का क्या काम अभी आया है सर इसमें?
Anyone can answer this question? Can anyone understood the question? I'm asking this because I want to make sure that I am contextually explaining things in a right direction. Everyone is aware why I am showing you this?
Yes, sir.
Okay, can you explain?
We are
Neha?
just yes, we are just locally deploying the container.
Okay.
That's why we use the provider Docker. And when we use EC2, at that time we use provider AWS.
Okay. Yes. So okay, Vinay. So let me also explain this. So there's no EC2 instance here. I was just showing you how you can use Terraform to deploy on different platform. Docker desktop जो आपका local है, what is that? It's a platform जहाँ पे आप कुछ run कर सकते हो, deploy कर सकते हो, application deploy कर सकते हो, right? Local desktop में it's not an infrastructure which you're deploying. If you see here, I'm not deploying a Docker desktop infrastructure. I'm deploying an application on the Docker desktop. So this means Terraform can do two things for you. Terraform can deploy infrastructure. Terraform can deploy applications. So it can do both things. अभी मैं जो दिखा रहा हूँ, what I'm showing you right now is showing you how you can use Terraform to deploy an application. So Nginx is a container, Docker container, which I'm using, which I'm deploying on my Docker desktop. अगर ये आप लोगों को समझ में आ गया है, if you have understood this, then I will go ahead and show you initialization of an EC2 instance. So that is what my next topic is.
ओके सर, हम डॉकर के ऊपर, डॉकर डेस्कटॉप के ऊपर हमारा डॉकर इमेज चला रहे हैं इंजनेक्स का, राइट? और उसमें हम कोई एप्लीकेशन रन कर रहे हैं, ऐसा कह रहे हो?
मतलब हम कंटेनर रन कर रहे हैं, वी आर रनिंग अ कंटेनर, सिंपल। यहाँ हम कोई इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर नहीं बना रहे, हम EC2 भी नहीं बना रहे, हम केवल एक कंटेनर को रन कर रहे हैं। ये मैं इसलिए बता रहा था ताकि आप लोग को बेसिक समझ में आए। तो यहाँ 5 लाइन या 25 लाइन के कोड में मैंने आपको टेराफॉर्म के बेसिक्स बताने की कोशिश करी है, which you can also try and run on your machine to see Terraform का syntax चलते कैसे हैं।
ओके सर। सर आई वांट टू आस्क कि सर ये तो हम मैन्युअली भी कर सकते हैं, तो टेराफॉर्म का यूज क्यों किया हमने?
जस्ट टू डेमोन्स्ट्रेट, आप लोग को टेराफॉर्म सिखाने के लिए।
ओके, देन एक्चुअल यूज क्या है टेराफॉर्म का?
एक्चुअल यूज मैं अभी बताऊंगा, EC2 इंस्टेंस मैंने बनाया था ना अभी दिखाने के लिए।
अच्छा,
आई विल शो यू द एक्चुअल यूज जस्ट नाउ। सो अभी में जो मैंने आपको दिखाया, ये एक्चुअली में इट्स जस्ट एन डेमोन्स्ट्रेशन ऑफ हाउ टेराफॉर्म कैन बी यूज्ड। Okay, now let me jump quickly to the actual use. So an actual use, this is actual use. So here I have a main.tf file and I have mentioned a lot of things here, right? So this is the actual use, right? Let me show you the resource blocks. Okay, so this is where I have installed, I have again did all the things here, AWS init वगैरह मैंने, sorry, Terraform init, all those things I have done here, and based on that it has downloaded automatically, it has downloaded Terraform provider AWS. And then if I go back to main.tf, you will see two blocks here. I have resource block 1, resource block 2. Okay, now in the resource block 1, this is security group. So I am trying to create a security group called as project IAC-SG. So मैं security group बना रहा हूँ यहाँ पे, project IAC-SG. Then I am providing it some rules. Ingress is this, ingress is this. This is for SSH, this is for public access on AT. Okay, and then some egress, and then some life cycle, a lot of settings which you can do, right? If you go to, अगर आप ये सब settings यहाँ जाओगे, यहाँ से कोई security group बना रहे हो, कुछ भी कर रहे हो, whatever you are doing, you can configure all of that directly from here. Right now, I've just used the very pretty basic settings here. Second resource group I have is AWS instance project ISE. I'm naming it as project ISE. And then here I'm saying I want to use this AMI image, this instance type, this subnet ID, this public IP address, and this key name. From where these values are coming, I'm using a function called as lookup. Lookup has values coming from var AWS props, which I have defined at the top. So I have variable AWS props, and here I have defined a key value pair. So I have defined region here, VPC as this. So अभी मैं इसी में ये भी कर सकता था. I would have went ahead and created a resource called as VPC, a resource called as subnet. But मैंने ऐसा नहीं किया. For the sake of simplicity, I am reusing the existing VPC. So मेरा VPC कहाँ है? If I go here, and if you see, I have a VPC already created here in the networking. This is my subnet ID, which I have used, and this is a VPC ID, which I have used. So I place my VPC here and subnet ID here. Okay, and that is what I am directly using here for my what AMI ID मैंने यहाँ लिखा हुआ है. मैं किस AMI ID से बनाना चाहता हूँ. AMI ID कैसे मिला था मुझे? If I go back, and if you remember, this is the AMI ID I would get, right? So this is the AMI ID. So हर machine का एक AMI ID होता है. That's what I placed here. IT type किस type का होना चाहिए, किस subnet में होना चाहिए, security group क्या होना चाहिए, right? So all of that I have actually provided here, all that information. Okay. Most important feature here is called as user data. Anyone know what user data is? Anyone used it? No. Okay, let me show it here. So when you go and create a new EC instance, when you scroll further down and go and open the advanced details, at the very bottom you get some place called as user data. Now user data is a script. It can be bash script, and in that script you write instructions which you want to execute when the machine is initialized or when the machine is created. What I've done here, if you see in the user data, what I want is when my machine is created, I want to have certain software pre-installed, so that I don't want to go back and then install it by my own. So what is the first thing I need? I want a Docker, right? I want to have a Docker installation. So I'm writing my commands here: sudo yum update, sudo yum install Docker. Then I want to start the Docker service. I want to assign Docker a specific user. I want to add the user into a group called as Docker group so that it can access the Docker daemon. Then I am saying I want to run this. I'm saying this. Then I also want to install Nginx. I want to run this on port 80. So I have this command here. So I'm saying install Nginx. Then I'm doing certain things here to configure it, which I will explain later. This is how you will use Nginx reverse proxy thing. I think we don't have time for that today, but I will talk about it tomorrow. So I've did some configuration here, and then I'm saying start Nginx, end of file. Okay, so this is user data. Whenever you create a EC2 instance, you can use this user data concept in EC2 to pre-install all the softwares for you so that you don't have to do it manually once the instance is up and running. So you get ready system. Okay, so now I have all the configuration directly here. I will now go and answer your question which you were asking originally, what are we doing? So now with this configuration, I don't have to go and do anything from here. I've automated this activity, and I can just go to Terraform. First, I will say Terraform plan. And when I say Terraform plan, it will show me the plan. In the plan, it doesn't do anything. It will just analyze and say what it would do. What is the effect of the apply before you do the apply? It's saying I will go and add 2 resources. I will output the EC2 instance. By the way, I've given an output column here. Output column says once the EC2 is initialized, I want to get the public IP of it. So I've been saying AWS instance I'm saying AWS instance, which is this one, the name of the project, project IC, name of the block is project IC. And then I'm saying public IP. I want to get a public IP here. If I open the TF state, it's blank. Right now, TF state is blank. And I will show you what later, once I've created it, you will see the content of it in a while. I will go ahead and say Terraform apply. Okay, so once I say Terraform apply, it will ask me, do I want to do that? I will say yes. Okay, creating. Guys, give me a minute. I'll be back. Okay, sorry. Now still creating, right? So it's creating it. It may take some time. If I go back and see instances and refresh this, it has started initializing this. You see now my instance is coming up slowly. It is saying initializing. That means it is still trying to do something. And to access this, if you see, go back here. I'm using a lot of things from the previous thing. So if you see the key name, right? So key pair name, I'm reusing it. I'm saying my static site key pair. How did I get this? From here, the key pairs and my static key pair. This is for which I have my private key with me, and my public key will be saved into my EC2 instance by AWS automatically, because I mentioned that I want to use this public key. So this key pair, private key is with me, and the public key of this will be saved into the newly created EC2 instance under .ssh authorized key file, so that I can now do SSH also for this. Okay, go back. Okay, it has created, it has given me the EC2 instance, the public IP of this, which is here. If I want to do an SSH with this one, quite easy. I will run the same command. And instead of this, I will run this. Yes. Given me access. Now, if I go and see if I have Docker here, I will have Docker here. If I say system CTL nginx status, I think nginx. Oh, what the hell I'm doing? Somehow it's running a bit slow for me today. Okay, so my nginx is also running. Okay, this is happening because of these scripts which I ran. This script is what I ran, right? And this installed Docker and this installed nginx, and it has done some configuration of nginx also on my server. You can also see this user data setting directly from here. So you can go to EC2. You can go to instances, and I can go to right click here, and where was it? Instance settings, edit user data, and you will see the whole thing here automatically came here. Okay, so my EC2 instance is up and running now, and I can access it. I can access it from here. My nginx is running here. If I say Flask, it is showing error. Now let me go ahead and quickly fix this. Okay, I want to install a Flask API here. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll go back. This part I will explain tomorrow because we don't have enough time. I will quickly go ahead and run my pipeline. So I'll run my pipeline. There's an API which I created, and I want to deploy this onto this server. So I will directly go here in the variable. I'll say EC2 host. I will provide the variable name, the server name only, and say run pipeline. And when I do that, this is supposed to go. If I show you the pipeline of this, This is an API which I created. Everything is similar to my static site. It just more things inside. There in the static site it was just index.html. Here you will have a full working API, and here I am deploying it to my host. Okay, now let's see if it has deployed. So if I go back and run this, Flask. Okay, not running so far. It's still running. It is running some. Okay, let's see if this is done. So once this is done, it will go ahead and deploy this API. So meanwhile it does. Questions? No questions? All clear on Terraform thing? Okay, good to know. Okay, so it has created here. If I, okay, my API is up. You see, so previously there was nothing, and then I completed the job and my job got deployed here in the Flask. It's an API, and that's how you access this. If I say books, it gives me a list of all the books. If I say I want just book Samuel, then it will simply say 2, and it will give me only that. And then I can do much more. Basically, I can create new books. I can delete a book. I can modify a book by these endpoints, basically. And this has happened because of this special configuration which I did, which is this one. This line, these 3 lines have an effect of this. So it is a Flask. I have decided Flask, location Flask proxy pass as this, and it is routing. This Nginx server configuration is routing the traffic coming to /Flask to this location. This is something I will explain tomorrow. Let's not do it today because it will be too much for today if I start explaining this also. Okay, so this comes under the configuration of Nginx server, and this we discuss tomorrow. But that's how, folks, we do things. Okay, we deploy infrastructure on the fly via Terraform, and then we use the CI/CD pipeline to deploy our stuff. We are trying to progress towards full-fledged CI/CD setup with an automated infrastructure as well. Okay, I think I should stop now. I think I should not take more topics. I think I want you guys to try it out, the Terraform things, install it. Try 2 examples which I've shown you. One is this one, the EC2 instance, and this should work on your machine also. Only thing you have to take care is modify these values. So you have to modify the VPC which you have, the AMI ID. I think this should remain still okay. This is common. Then you have to change the subnet IDs, and then I think the key name also, which you have to do, as well as group. I think group is also okay because I am creating the group here. I am automatically creating the group, so I think this can remain as it is, but you may have to change 2-3 settings here: VPC, subnet ID, and key name. These things has to be changed. I will maybe write it down. Change this, and we can later change it to. We can later modify this file so that everything is automated. So every time you create this, a new VPC will be created, a new security group will be created, and then a new key pair will be created, and then everything will be automated fully, so that the file just works for you. So we will do that also later.
Sir.
Yeah.
सर टेराफॉर्म मतलब इस तरीके से है कि हम EC2 इंस्टेंस मतलब स्टार्ट कर सकते हैं और उसके अंदर हमारा जो जैसा कॉन्फ़िगरेशन हमको चाहिए उस तरीके का EC2 इंस्टेंस हम रन कर सकते हैं टेराफॉर्म से, यही है ना वर्क टेराफॉर्म?
It's not, yes, this is one use case of it, but Terraform you can do anything in AWS or anything in in Azure or anything in GCP. So it's not only EC2 which we create here, right? You create Lambda function here, you create whole clusters, you create EKS cluster, you have ECS, you have ECS Fargate, you have databases, right? Different databases, you have different monitoring system here. You can configure everything which you could actually do in AWS. You can actually do that in Terraform.
Okay.
So it's not only for EC2. I've shown you a small example of EC2, but you can do everything with it.
Okay, sir. Means when we have to start a bunch of EC2 instance, so we can start by Terraform.
Yes, you can have just not one, you can have many. So you can just provide the resources, you can provide instances, and you can have you can say 5 instances. So it will create 5 instances of this configuration.
Okay,
that you can
right.
try also.
Understood.
Yes. Yeah.
That's why it is used. Okay.
Yes.
Understood. And सर ये फ्लाक्स जो आपने लास्ट में समझाया सर, ये थोड़ा समझ नहीं आया.
कौन सा?
फ्लास्क,
Flask. Okay, Flask.
फ्लास्क.
Okay, Flask is an API which I created. Okay, आप उसका जो कोड है वो आप देख सकते हो. The code of Flask is here, which you can go through. Here I have, it's in Python. Python has a framework called as Flask, and it is used for creating REST APIs. That is what I have used. यहाँ मैंने, you can go through this file. I will explain this file tomorrow on how API looks like and how API works. So this is a small API, a Flask API, and I want to deploy this into the same cluster, onto the same EC2 machine, and I want to give it a path from where it is accessible. So I created a sub URL path called as /flask. So anyone coming to this, अगर कोई यहाँ पे directly आएगा, it can come here, right? But if someone wants to access my Docker container or anything running there, I don't want to give different port numbers जो मैं पहले कर रहा था. I don't want to give port numbers to access different containers. I want to configure at the server level. So I want to say Flask. And when I say /flask, my Nginx server has to have this intelligence that when it receives the traffic on /flask, it should reroute it to a specific container URL. And that is what basically I have done it. I can quickly show you this thing. I will go to etc. And here you will see cd nginx, and here you will see a file called as cat nginx.conf, and here I have mentioned location Flask as proxy pass this. That means अगर कोई भी URL के बाद /flask लिखेगा तो उसका ट्रैफिक यहां चला जाएगा. प्रॉक्सी कर दो उस ट्रैफिक को यहां पर. And if you see my docker ps, there is a container running here, my Flask, which is listening to 8082. So जो भी nginx URL में Flask लिखेगा उसका सारा ट्रैफिक send to localhost 8082, and localhost 8082 पे I have my API running, which is internally listening to 5000. So here it is. I've explained today. We can see more of it tomorrow. अगर overload हो गया है तो. But this is what I have done, and this is what I will be using further to deploy multiple applications on the same EC2 instance. मैं 8-10 कंटेनर रन करूंगा और सबका लोकेशन चेंज करूंगा यहाँ से. Okay, and then this is how different locations, different applications can be accessed from the same URL but with different paths, URL paths. This is the concept which is called as reverse proxy in Nginx, जो मैंने आप लोग को पढ़ने के लिए कहा था. Anyway, questions?